Welcome to the first Alpha Tutorials podcast, a podcast which is designed to help maximize your user experience in the Alpha camera system and to also help those of you who may be new to photography get to understand the basics and fundamentals of photography. My name is Tristan, I'll be your host. Basically, the idea behind this podcast, as I mentioned, is to give you a chance to see the gear, get to know how the gear works and what makes up the Sony system, look at the fundamentals of the cameras. We'll try and bring in people to interview from time to time who shoot on Sony, who may be key people in the Sony structures, so that you'll be able to find out a little bit more about the brand you're in, as well as improve the photography that you're doing through your camera. Just some news to kick off this week's show. We've got two new cameras that were announced by Sony last week. The first one is their Alpha NEX-C3. It's one of the mirrorless cameras, which is really small but allows you to change lenses. We'll talk a little bit more about the different types of cameras in the Sony range as time goes on. The other new one that was announced was the Alpha A35. This camera will be replacing the Alpha 33, which is our current favorite machine to work with. And then we have the C3, which will be replacing the NEX-3. Those cameras will be available towards mid-August. And we have some doubts about some of the changes they've made, and we also like some of the things which they've done. In particular, what they've done with these cameras is include functionality for creative filters. So you can have your pictures look like they were shot with a toy camera, or high contrast black and white. Those kind of features, however, will be available in a firmware upgrade for the existing models that are currently on the market in the near future. And when that firmware becomes available, we'll show you how to upload it onto your camera and set your camera up with the new firmware. So don't get into panic. Those features are coming to your existing camera. You don't need to rush out and upgrade in a hurry. We're going to take some time today to look at the fundamentals of photography. The three pillars upon which we create photographs and create the exposure for our photographs are ISO, shutter speeds, and aperture. And as we discuss these things, we'll post some more information up on alphatutorials.co.za, the blog where you can go and find out more about the things we discuss here, and where you can also submit your questions. So if after today you have any questions for us, please feel free to go to the website, submit your questions, and we'll answer them in a future show. What I want to start off with is looking at the ISO. In the days of film, you had to pick what film you wanted to use, what ISO film you used, before you put it in the camera and went out to shoot. ISOs go in a range of different sensitivities, starting today on most digital cameras from about ISO 100 or 200 and going all the way up to 12,800 and higher. The ISO sensitivity, the way it works, is that you lower the number, the least sensitive the camera is going to be in light. And the higher the ISO, the more sensitive it is. There is a downside to this though. As your ISO goes up and your sensitivity increases, the camera is amplifying the information it gets. And so you start introducing what we call digital noise, or the graininess to your photographs. So be careful with your ISO. Make sure that you get it somewhere where you get a good balance to make sure you're getting enough light so you won't have camera shake, but also that you're not having too much noise in your pictures. To change your ISO, it's pretty simple, but first you need to be able to get out of the auto mode on your camera. It's not that I have anything against auto mode, it's great to start off with, but as your confidence builds, you need to move out of auto so you can take more control of the camera and be able to take more control of the creative process. So what I'm going to do now to demonstrate to you the ISO and the aperture and shutter speeds is switch over into the manual mode where we can control all three things. In auto, you have no control over any of those settings. You'll find a button on your camera which says ISO, and when you press it, you'll find that you're able to go up and set your ISO according to what you need for the situation. What's nice about live view is it also tends to give you an example of what the scene is going to look like at that particular ISO. And we've got auto ISO, and we can go and set our ISO according to what our needs are. Let's take a look then also at shutter speeds and aperture. Okay. Once we've got our ISO set, the next place to focus on would probably be your aperture. Your aperture is what decides how much light is going to pass through the lens into the camera. Now, your aperture is what we call an F number or an F stop as well. And the way that it works is kind of reverse to ISO. The smaller your aperture number, the bigger the aperture opening is going to be and the more light you're going to have coming through your lens. For example, take a look over here, we're going to have the screen there is brightening up as we're opening up the aperture, and it gets darker as we close down the aperture. Okay, now, as I said, remember, it works a little bit back to front. What we're focusing on is the fact that these are measured kind of as a fraction. So the smaller the number, the bigger the opening is going to be and the more light we'll have. The bigger your aperture number, the smaller the opening, and we'll find that we have less light coming in through to the camera. The aperture also controls something called depth of field, which is the amount of area in the photograph that's going to be in focus. We'll chat a little bit about that in a future podcast. The last thing that we want to talk about is your shutter speeds. Now your shutter speed, okay, what your shutter speed does is it controls the amount of light that's ultimately going to hit the sensor. So we're controlling light coming into the camera, and we control it further by the shutter that opens and closes just in front of your CMOS or your CCD sensor. The shutter speeds also work as fractions, and the way that you'll have it is they'll range anywhere from 30 seconds, and if you take a look on this particular camera, if we go all the way down to that side there, you find you've got those little commas or apostrophes there on the top. That means that you're now in the seconds range of the camera. Some cameras will put a little S next to the number, and what that means is we're now shooting at 8 seconds or whatever the case is. We can go all the way down to 30 seconds. Make sure you have a good tripod on hand when you do that. You can also take that shutter speed all the way up, down this way, and obviously we're now going into fractions of seconds. So for example, there I've got it set at a 2/50th of a second. So it's a fraction of a second. We're allowing a fraction of time for the light to pass into the camera. And as we can see, we're starting to get close to where the exposure should be. When the camera measures the light, it has a little graph in the corner that it goes from -2 to +2. And there's a little arrow above that. And what we want to do when we're shooting in manual is adjust our aperture and shutter till that little arrow is hovering above the 0. And that will be perfect exposure for the situation as the camera sees it. Those are the 3 fundamentals. As I said, we'll post some more information about that up onto the website, alphatutorials.co.za. Go through there, check it out. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them through to us. Each episode, we want to take a bit of time to go and sit and answer your questions that you have around your camera, around photography in general. Thanks very much, and we hope to see you on the next podcast.